out of here in a second, but we'll talk about Loki first, right?
Yeah, go for it.
I okay. So I really like that ending. I know that you may be split on it based on we briefly spoke about it. Spoilers, guys. Now we're
Yeah,
going into
now we're gonna
spoilers.
get into it.
Now
Yeah.
we're going into spoilers. Um, I I really enjoyed the entire season two. I liked each episode. Every episode was good in my opinion. There was no episode that I got bored. Every episode had something going on, right? This episode, I think it it doesn't really excel at like how should I phrase this? I'm having trouble expressing it, but it doesn't as an episode for a show. It doesn't really blow your mind, but what it does for the MCU is, I think, probably the most important thing that happened since Thanos was, first revealed in the first Avengers, right? It really circles back and I think wraps up Loki's story in a very good way. Although Hiddleston out there said it's like, oh, it would be what was his quote? It's like it would be really arrogant of my part if to think that this would be the last time that you see Loki, right? But at the same
Yeah.
time, it
Yeah.
is kind of like the end of it, right? The OG Loki died, and this Loki is I don't want to say forever trapped, but basically the multiverse falls apart, and Loki uses his power to hold it together, creating Yggdrasil. So creating the multi-plane tree from Norse mythology. Um, I really really liked it, Joel. I really enjoyed it. Again, as a show, right? They didn't blow my mind for the ending. The final episode didn't blow my mind, but then again, it's in the details, right? The importance of Loki now going full circle from villain to the savior of the multiverse, right?
Yeah.
And that was a really good loop. Him being actually getting his throne, but not the one that he needed or wanted, but the one that everyone deserved. So, basically, he's holding the fibers of the multiverse together, trapped technically in there forever, right? While the TVA now readjusts into what is a TVA now and how they handle, I guess, variants, which takes me back to, I guess they killed Kong officially, but you didn't notice because when they go back and when the agent was it goes back and talks to Mobius and she asked him, it was like how are the other variants doing? It's like, oh yeah, there was a problem with the one in 616 adjacent, but they took care of it. That's the one from Quantum Mania. So
Right.
that means that the Kang or the Kang variants have been subverted into just like they're not really relevant anymore. So that's a smart way to do it,
I
man.
agree.
That's a
I
smart
agree.
way to do it. If you ask me, dude. And then the following day we get news, right? And we can, I guess, segue into that later. But how do you feel about it, man? Oh,
Yeah.
he froze. Oh, there you
I
go.
think.
Perfect.
Oh, am I here? I'm
You're good.
back.
You're good. You're good.
Cool. Okay. 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 So I think when we talk about this episode, and then I'll kind of tie it into just the season as a whole. So this particular episode is it's a good finale. I don't think it's a great finale. I think that it was very predictable for the first half. I was sitting there, and you can guys like Obed, the new technology we're using for some of our clips. I may have to use it for this, but I know people close to me have said this, and I've said it on the show before. They were going to do the whole live, die, repeat thing and relive that moment over and over. I predicted that. I literally said like
Oh,
when the
yeah,
whole when the whole universe when the
right.
whole thing ended and became spaghetti, I was like, watch, like this they're gonna go back in time and redo this again. And not only did it again, they did it again, 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 faster, do it faster, go
For
again,
thousands
whatever.
of years.
Thousands of years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Very predictable. And then I was like, well, if he can't do this, like he has to obviously go back to the moment that Sylvie kills King. Like you knew that was like obvious one coming through. But then when you get the starts to change things up is when you finally get the pause and King and Loki break out and they're just speaking to each other.
right.
Great,
That was great.
absolutely great moment. That's to me where it starts to actually pick up
Mm,
that finale
yeah,
because then you get the reverse where Loki he's like, okay, fine, we'll play, and then Loki just snaps again. It's like, what makes you think we haven't had this conversation before as well? And he actually pauses time himself, Loki. Um, that's where some of the issues starts to fall into me. So Loki is now the smartest and most powerful character in the entire MCU
right.
because he has had now hundreds of years of physicists and learning science and chemistry and whatever
And
and
multiversal travel and time
multiversal
travel and all
travel
that.
and he
Yeah,
can
right.
right like he's basically like the power of the beyonder like and the watcher together kind of thing
Right.
and like so you just did that for him and then you also now just basically gave that somehow he has the power of life to give to the two timelines that he can give life to entire timeline branches, right? As a whole, I think that it works and it makes sense ish. I just don't like it's not that it bothers me it doesn't bother me the choice that they made. It's just like I don't trust them on how they did it because of the ramifications. Like I don't expect them to hold true to this huge, huge moment. I feel like it's gonna be undone to some extent. And that's frustrating. I definitely would say like it was very comic booky, like him walking in and grabbing the branch, giving it power, and sitting there
It
on the
was,
throne,
yeah, that was
because
cool.
it's like that's the kind of stuff like DC. If you're a DC fan, like in the comics, the Flash being stuck on like the world treadmill or whatever, and like he has to just keep running forever. Jay Garrick gets stuck in one of those things or whatever. There's like a whole storylines on that, right? The Crisis on Infinite Earths and a few different other comics that have done stuff like that, where it's like, him being stuck running on the treadmill, and like, now in this one, it's like he's stuck sitting in the throne holding these things together for all of time.
Right.
Like that's very comic book. So like it doesn't bother me at all. But yeah, like my point being is I just gave criticism to the Marvels, right? Like had they done the same thing with a female character, I would have said the same exact like reaction. Like if they have made
Right.
any other character sit there and have the same
See,
become the smartest
just,
person, be
uh,
trained,
yeah,
it's not that it's bad. It just feels like I don't know, man.
as much as I liked Sylvie, yeah, totally. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. I
Like
agree. I
with
agree.
Sylvie, I didn't think they used Sylvie to the extent that I would have liked this whole season.
Totally.
You
Yeah,
could
yeah, yeah.
tell that it was a different showrunner because the
Right.
showrunner from the first season used Sylvie and used Ravonna and used Miss Minutes in a very intricate way, and they
Right.
did do it for a bit in here. Not saying they did horrible by any means, but it almost felt like sometimes they just kind of resorted to
So,
making Sylvie just moody,
but okay.
and they didn't really know how to use
So,
all the
so
time.
I think that again, right. They probably learned from Obi-Wan, where they call the
Yeah,
show Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan's not really the main character of the show. So they course corrected, because
that's
that
true.
sort of happened right at the on the first season. It's like, oh, I wanted to watch a show about Loki. Now is this female Loki and this other like school principal trying to do this thing, right? And
Yeah,
so right, and there was some criticism when it comes to that. And I didn't mind it, right? But
sure.
right, the whole bait and switch that Disney's been doing for the last, I don't know, 5 years, it's getting tiresome, right? So at some point you gotta go back to your roots, and I think this show tried to do that, and it achieved it, right? It's like Loki
Yeah,
is the main character. He's involved
that's
with
true.
every choice, every decision that everyone makes. He's involved with it, and he's there, and he's doing stuff, right? He's not depending on Sylvie to do this thing. He's go ahead and do it, right? So
Totally.
yeah, they kind of course corrected it. So
But like all the criticisms that I just gave, um, I, I I can honestly say I like the show. It's like how I criticize like the Batman, right? Like yeah, I've had my criticisms of that movie.
right,
I like that movie. Like I like this
it's
season
very
of
good.
Loki. I
Yeah.
think it's something that Marvel needed, like something very refreshing, which just is consistent. It didn't need to be this an action pack. There's like maybe two major action sequences in the entire series.
Right,
It's very like you don't even need to be a comic book fan. Like you just like good television.
it's sci-fi.
You
Yeah,
can watch and enjoy good sci-fi, which I think is good. Like Marvel needs that kind of quality, and then it does have a big ramification for the bigger MCU, like you said. I think that's what's positive. But like, man, I'm sorry. Like the Victor Timely thing, they wasted 2 episodes on us. That was pointless. Like those they you
they
get the
had
whole like
to.
creepy Miss Minutes thing, you get all this stuff, and like there's no payoff for that
They
at all.
no
He
no
becomes
the yeah
spaghetti and it doesn't matter.
yeah, and he comes back and he acknowledges the things, and then he just goes away back to his timeline.
Yeah, dude.
Or goes back to his timeline, right? But technically now that the timeline his timeline was curated and he never received the guide, so he doesn't become timely, right? That's the whole
Sure.
thing. He even got
Sure.
erased from
Got erased. The book doesn't come through,
right.
whatever. Like
So
that like that's crazy. Like so like those two
uh,
things like completely undone. Doesn't matter. And
yeah,
then like to me, the episode even before the finale of like let's go run through time and find you're a nurse and you're working at McDonald's and like
I
Mobius
really
is
right,
a
yeah, I
man.
really like that.
I know you liked it, but to me, it's like I could have done without it personally. Like I don't think it was like a fun like filler episode. It wasn't horrible, but it's just in general. There's a few things with this show that some people have given it a lot of praise, and I definitely see that it's quality acting. It's got a great story. It's aesthetically pleasing, like all those kind of positives. But I gotta call like I see now as I
Yeah,
look at the whole season. Definitely not as exciting as maybe season one for me. I definitely would be curious if they would have had the same showrunner, if she would have stayed on, what things maybe they would have done. But regardless, did like it. I think it's good. I think most people will like it, and that's a positive. Marvel needed that for sure.
yeah, and it needed a W for sure.
Yeah.